I'd like you to sit back, take a few nice cleansing breaths. Nice inhalation through the nose and a strong exhalation through soft open lips. Your back is nice and erect, your feet firmly anchored into the earth, your crown so open, and you could even be lying in a bed, lying on your back. Just find a comfortable position. For tonight, our prayer request is to remind me to see with thine eye. So the prayer begins with, I take responsibility for the fact that I have freedom to choose how I wish to live. Choice is a gift, but at times it doesn't feel that way. You see, my mind can make me forget to see the beauty, to see the likeness, and to see with gratitude, to see with awe. The mind can make me feel so busy that I have to help it out. In order for it to give me some peace and ease, I cannot let it run the show. I have learned to realize that my mind simply needs to label things in order for it to move on to the next task. It simply needs to identify what's going on in order to make order. But if I allow the mind to mindlessly lead me, I can feel out of control. If I allow my mind to be undisciplined and let it do its own thing, well, it takes me in a million divergent directions. If I fail to remind myself that I am not my thoughts, then I allow myself to get hijacked, to feel controlled and overwhelmed. You see, it took me years to learn how to detach from my thoughts, to detach long enough to witness just how my mind continually repeats. And with time and lots of practice, this gap between thoughts has grown. It's grown long enough that I am now better able to become aware of my energy, aware of the energy that belongs to others around me. But left on its own, my mind makes me feel seasick. It makes me feel badly, and in just a short time, it fills me with fear and worry, anxiety, anger, and jealousy, even shame. If unchecked for too long, it can ultimately lead me into a state of depression. Of course, if I let it. Did you know that the mind has over 60,000 repetitive thoughts a day? Yes, it's true. The mind has a tendency, when left alone, to repeat itself and to take on the negative frequency of the collective mind. So when left unchecked, the mind simply repeats and repeats and repeats. The mind gets stuck. It gets looped in a negative cycle that causes unnecessary suffering. And the mind will go and go and go until it forces me into needing rest, into that state of depression. You see, depression is simply anger that's turned inwardly. It's a form of protection. It's essentially a freeze mode that my nervous system forces me into so that I don't experience any further overwhelm. Basically, it functions to help us survive. So in order to change the way I feel, I have to find the strength, the support. I have to make up my mind to become aware enough to want change. So basically, it's a shift. It's a shift that requires recruiting my body for help. See, when I'm living so dissociated from my body, I can't forget. Like, I basically when I'm living dissociated from my body, I forget that I even have a body. I feel so disconnected and as though my mind is operating alone. I forget that I am connected and grounded to a body that can ground me, can allow me to remember to feel playful and engaged, right? I wasn't really aware of my thoughts when I was younger. I was so busy playing, right? I recall as a child that I felt present. I played. I really played. I could play because I wasn't stuck up in my mind, perpetually thinking. I played because the world hadn't done a number on me yet. It hadn't conditioned me just yet. These outside forces, they didn't really control me yet. Ignorance was bliss. I wasn't aware of all the things the world was telling me, these things that I should do or should be. Instead, I simply was aware of the moment, right? Still unaware of differences. I felt free. I naturally flowed toward what felt good. I engaged socially without judgment and criticism. And I saw likeness. I saw us as one. Yet slowly over time, my playful spirit got affected by rules and routines, and the world seemed to turn up its volume. And I could no longer hear my own heartbeat like before. As my freedom felt challenged, I would become more resistant, more entangled with the world, moving towards the world's agenda and away from my own inner compass, that inner action, that intuition, that sense of home. So with less time now for running free-spiritedly, so sun-drenched and barefoot until dark, fading quickly was that ringlet hair, free-flowing, gently kissed by the salt air. I was slowly losing my natural rhythm. I was becoming more staccato, more contracted, more robotic, in step with the drumbeat of the world. And as the world stepped in to try to define me, to limit me, I'd fall prey to becoming its victim, filled with thoughts of betrayal and blame. It's like this black hole of betrayal. It created what could only be filled with shame. For black holes suck the light out of the stars. So unconsciously conceding and believing like a victim, I'd eventually seek revenge and become repressed and depressed and angry. Resentfulness and fear would further disconnect me from the truth of who I truly am, further disconnecting me from that healthy engagement with others and with nature, and most importantly with spirit. If I only knew more then, maybe, just maybe, I could have avoided the pain. You see, most of us, we don't like change, right? We stay with what's familiar, even if we don't like it. Uncertainty can feel uncomfortable. But now, as I'm older, I better understand what it really feels like to be okay with not being okay. It's okay to feel sad and bored and lonely, tired and overwhelmed. I'm getting better with being okay with not being okay. Today, that greater I knows with greater certainty that transformation truly comes in the chaos, in that darkness, in the dormancy. For in death, in pause, in rest, it is necessary. It's necessary for renewal. Pain is necessary. The soul needs this earth schooling and this world, for it offers us opportunities to see truth, to learn how to respond rather than simply reacting, to stay connected to each now moment, for that's really where the magic is in seeing who I truly am. I am beginning to see who I truly am by taking responsibility and especially taking responsibility for those same behaviors that I exhibit and so wrongfully blame others for. You see, I can empathize, I can forgive, and I really can see the real you, for it's simply a mirror of me. And to see that we are one, we are the same. And when I am connected with truth, illusion is shattered. There's no I, there's no me, there's no you. There's only absolute truth. There's only absolute oneness. So by opening my greater I, my inner I see the limits. I see the mistaken beliefs for that little I or that little me has attached itself to for so long. And I see that it no longer serves my best interest. I can notice that sense of a little me that has separated me from you. You know, this hasn't been easy because ego's convinced me that it's something special. It's told me that it needed me to be different, to be better, to be more than. Ego's convinced me that I wasn't enough. But luckily for grace, for God, for He reminds that little me of the truth. He reminds me that I am enough. I am absolute. I am love. And accepting all that I am is the truth which allows that little me to surrender and just let life happen. Right? To surrender and accept what is. To stop searching towards achieving something or acquiring that something from without, but instead to learn to pause, to breathe, and to allow myself to flow with what is here in this here and now moment. For each moment allows the greater I to see truth, to simply witness life as it unfolds, to not skip a beat, and to notice how my heart responds. My heart, not my mind, permits seeing the beauty in life, within and without judgment, without expectation. For from the heart, with this knowing, this inner knowing, I'm no longer sucked in and taken over by the world's chaos. For I create my inner reality. It's one that creates such a beautiful outer world, a world that is more harmonious and less threatening. I am spirit. Hear me roar. I possess everything and need nothing from this earthly world. I am not the mistaken beliefs that ego or the little me has taken on from the world in the face of fear. I release all those feelings of lack. I unleash and drop all the limiting beliefs and detach from the world's rigid agenda and prescriptive definitions. I shake density. I shake off the illusion that ego has so desperately been clinging to, holding on to so tightly. I am truth and fear no more. I feel truth. I assert truth. The greater I witnesses instead of battles. The greater I is able to align vertically and refuses to blame the world. In horizontal alignment, there is more than simply engaging with the senses. There's this engagement with the world with an open-hearted sense of service and purpose. You see, the greater I recognizes how the mind works and is so much better able to recruit an eager mind that's willing to cooperate when called upon. See, the greater I, it doesn't believe that everything is happening to it. Instead, the greater I knows that people and situations cannot create its pain, for the greater I sees beyond ego's false sense of reality. The greater I no longer has a reason to attach to this little self. It knows that there's a greater source operating and running the show. I am not needy, but want to fill the needs of others. See, a little self sees an angry world, but the greater I, it doesn't feel part of a competitive world that's so full of hate. That greater I does not need to change the world, but instead simply lives fully grounded in each present moment. The greater I doesn't wish that everything and everyone be different, be better. Instead, it works on becoming its best self. The greater I doesn't think of what could be. Instead, it simply is. It doesn't fear, and it already knows it's enough, without suffering, without pain, without limit, without hate, without resistance. The greater I accepts pain and suffering as its natural state. It's necessary for spiritual evolution. I am love. Greater I sees in complete alignment with the highest self, with God, with spirit. The greater I is open. It's grounded in the now, unafraid, fully present, presently aware. The greater I is the heart, the soul. It trusts beyond logic. The greater I is that something bigger. Opening the inner eye invites intimacy with the wisdom of the soul. And when the greater I is aligned, life hums. The greater I is self-propelling, gentle, kind, and soothing. The greater I is always working in the background, operating harmoniously without need for words, for words simply disrupt its symphony. God's grace allows the greater I to break through the physical mind's inner turmoil, almost miraculously, in a sudden aha-like fashion. It takes just but a moment for that I to unite the body with the mind, singing them, allowing them to communicate and to do away with conflict. Although the physical world still exists, the greater I is unaffected. It's being in the world, but not of it. So while nothing external has really changed, it's that little me that simply dropped its need for attachment, from adhering to anything external, for deriving a sense of false power. It's that little me. It realizes it's identified wrongly. It's okay. It's clung to this wrong source. But now rightly aligned with essence, that greater I, it stands firmly, courageously in authentic power. That greater I no longer needs the little self to make it seem real. See, the external physical world is an illusion. It's all about competition and power. It's the job of the ego to conquer and control. But true authentic power is the one source. Authentic power and strength, readily accessible, limitless, simply awaiting full allowance in order for it to truly soar. I am powerful. The power of I rests within each of us. That greater I is eagerly awaiting reawakening and wants to be fully expressed. Living playfully in the now with gratitude, fully connected to source energy, shifts us into alignment with our higher self, with a sense of oneness. Realigning with self is relieving, re-energizing, it's reorienting. It brings understanding, it brings clarity, guidance, and organization, wisdom, and hope to this earthly life drama. An aligned self is eager, It's properly nourished and continually energized for socially engaging in all of life's roles. Without fear, there's no need to memorize lines. There's no need for a script. Without fear, there is no worry. There is no need for judgment. Self-awareness opens the heart and opens the mind, allowing the true self to fully emerge, to act and to co-create freely, fully able to give and receive love. Wow, clarity, what a relief. Without ego attachment, the greater I is full. It no longer needs that little me. That greater I doesn't get caught up with all the highs and lows, no longer is absorbed by the drama of earthly life. Now that greater I can simply surrender, accept what is, and simply allow life to happen. Now I can hear God speak. God shakes me into opening up, to loosening the contracted, scared stronghold of little self in order to feel newly inspired for serving others, for living purposely, and for playing joyfully, blissfully, with presence, here and now, in a heaven on earth.